everyone, this is Kylie from Stamper's Workshop. I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator from Melbourne, Australia. Today we're making a really pretty card using a really simple but effective technique, and I think you're going to love it, and I hope you'll give it a try. We're using the Butterfly Gala stamp set. This is a Photopolymer stamp set, and it's a two-step stamp set, which means it has the outline that you can stamp, and if you don't want to colour it yourself, you can also use the solid image that comes with it. And we're going to be using both the solid and the outline today. I'm using 3 of the 4 Butterfly Duos outlines that come with the set. The other one was just a little bit darker for what I had in mind, so that's why I haven't used that one. I'm stamping each of the duos twice because at this stage I wasn't quite sure how many butterflies I would need, and it's always better to sort of have them ready and not need them than sort of get to halfway through the project and realise you need some more. I'm stamping with black Memento ink onto Whisper White cardstock. You can see, please don't think I'm wasting that cardstock. I will use all of it in another project. I was just trying to simplify it for the video because I was going to punch it out and it just gives me a bit more to hang on to. You can see now I'm adding the bodies to the butterflies. You don't need to do this, but it does cut it out on the craft punch. The stamp set also comes with antenna, but I haven't stamped those because they don't get cut out with the craft punch. Okay, here's the technique. I just use one of my large acrylic blocks as my base just to keep it all neat and tidy. You could use a paper plate or something like that if you like, or even an open CD case. Grab your baby wipes. I just use whatever's cheapest at the supermarket when I'm shopping, and I go for a fragrance-free one so that I can use it to clean stamps if I need to as well. I've taken the bold re-inkers for this project. You could use whatever colours you like though. This was just on hand and I thought they were pretty colours. So I'm adding just little drops. So I've used Melon Mambo, Granny Apple Green. I'm now adding Coastal Cabana. Then we've got Daffodil Delight. I know it looks like a hot mess and you're kind of thinking, is this going to work? Some of these bolder colours like Gorgeous Grape, I could have potentially used Highland Heather instead, and I've added Pacific Pointers, and that's another that comes up really bright, which you'll see. So I've only used a couple of the really dark ones, but just have a play around and see, and don't forget they will run and they'll run into each other, so you could end up with a bit of a muddy mess, so just be careful when you are mixing your colours. I love how you get some that are really dark and some that have more of one colour than the other. So some of them I've stamped and I've gone, ooh, I can see on the photopolymer I just don't like it. So I've sort of wiped it off and just started again. So I stamp all of the little butterfly first, and now I'm going through and I'm adding the base of the bottom half of the butterfly, and then I'll do that to all of my stamped images, and you can see none of them look the same, especially when you add in the different outlines and then you add the ink bottom. They all look different. It's fantastic. Some of them have a real sort of watercolour effect because maybe I've pressed a little harder, so they've had a little bit more of the moisture come through. Some of them are quite solid, particularly around the areas that are using the Pacific Point. So just have a play around and see what you like. You can use fewer colours. You know, I use quite a number of colours, but you don't have to use that many. That's the beauty of this. Use as many or as few as you like. It certainly works best with a solid image, but you could probably have a practice and play with outlines as well. Okay, so now that I have coloured them all in, have a look. Aren't they pretty? Yeah, they do look good in real life too. Okay, now we're using the coordinating butterfly punch. It punches out both the large and the small butterfly at the same time. It gives you a little white margin around the outside. You could fussy cut this as well, but if you've got a punch, it makes it much easier. For the sentiment, I'm using the Thank You So Very Much sentiment from the Butterfly Gala stamp set. I'm using my embossing buddy to remove any static, or as much as possible, from my basic black cardstock, and then I'm stamping on it with Versamark and adding some white embossing powder. The white flakes from this embossing powder go everywhere, so try and remember to use your embossing buddy. It really does help. Okay, we're cutting out the sentiment using one of the dies from the Stitch Rectangles die set, one of my staple die sets. You might have noticed I use it a lot. Basic black is also our cardstock base we're using today. The paper we're using for our background is beautiful. It's a shame to cover up that golden black side. That's a gold foil, but we're using the other side because it has a nice little bit of texture or with the lines on it, but it doesn't overwhelm because really I want those butterflies to be the star of the show. The paper comes from a pack called the Golden Honey Specialty Designer Series paper pack. Okay, now we just get to the fun part of trying to work out how all those gorgeous images fit together on our card front. So just play around. This is when I'm not going to use all of them, but I can have a play and go, well, I really like that colour, but I don't like that colour. That's too bold, that's too light, whatever. So just play around, see what you like. Normally I would use the snail adhesive, but for this I've gone with liquid adhesive just so that I can sort of have a bit of wiggle room. You'll see here I've attached one already, but when I set down my bigger butterfly now, it kind of hides just a little bit of the butterfly that was already there. But because it hadn't quite dried properly, I was able to sort of move it up a little bit out of the way, change the angle, and just made it look a little bit more aesthetically pleasing to the eye. So that's a good tip, because you don't really want to sort of use the snail adhesive, for example, and have to move it. You might end up ripping it. Having said that, if you move too slowly with your liquid adhesive, you will end up ripping it as well. So just keep that in mind. I often don't press too hard on my images until I'm sort of really happy with where they lie. Aren't those colours gorgeous? The one that I've got underneath the So, that large one, I think that's my favourite. The colours are just brilliant. They're all sort of the same depths of colour, just really beautiful. And I love how they sort of pop against the black and the white. So now that we've put them all down, I felt like it needed something else. I had thought about adding tails or air movement or something to indicate they were moving. In the end, I've just added quite a number of rhinestones just to add a little bit of bling. So that's the outside of the card finish. Isn't that pretty? The colours are just gorgeous. Now we need to tie inside to the outside. So take your sheet of Whisper white cardstock, cut it to the size you like. We're just adding one of the leftover butterflies, and this time I'm going to use the black journaling pen to add a sort of like a tail for movement. And then that's the inside done. Just adhere it to the inside of your card with some snail adhesive, and voila, you've got the inside and the outside of a card made. Super simple, very pretty. I hope you'll give it a try. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.